3. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Musha. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello there.
And we're going to be talking about The Bad Batch, Season 1, Episode 10, Common Ground today. That's what we're going to be talking about. And can't believe it's at the 10th episode already. Hard to believe.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
I think there's only 6 episodes left this season.
Oh, bummer.
And we'll be covering all of those. But before we get into this episode and any speculation for future episodes, I will remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at TowerBabbleCast, Facebook.com/TowerBabbleCast, and head over to our website, TowerBabble.ca, to find everything that we do, including our flagship show, the Tower Babble Podcast. And we should have a following sometime in the next couple of days after this show is out. There'll be a little bonus episode with Jeremy and I talking about a little bit of gaming stuff, mostly Nintendo related, and that'll be in the feed for the TOB podcast. So find that there as well.
Nice.
And I think that's it. Is there anything you wanna plug or
anything I want to plug?
Yeah.
I mean, no, not really. On the subject of Nintendo, I bought that new Mario Golf game.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I heard mixed things. How was it?
We only played I just played once, so it was a little tedious. I don't know. There's things I like about it, things I don't, but I didn't play all the super fun games yet. We just played the regular mode. Yeah. Apparently the putting greens aren't the same as they're not as the original 64 version, and that's a bummer. So.
Well, I don't remember anything of the original Mario Golf, so
yeah. It's really hard to do. I was way better at this one, so I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, like I said, I only heard mixed things. I'm always willing to give another Mario sports game a try, but only in a casual setting. I don't want to be committed to a Mario Golf game. I don't want to buy it. I just so much want to just play it for an hour.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I can see that. Yeah, it was $80. Yeah. It was expensive.
Yeah. Well, it's because they don't know how to. Yeah, every game is $80 for them. It's nuts. Anywho, this isn't a gaming show.
Every game ever is $80, but
it's so crazy.
They're all $79.99
in Canada. Yeah, it's anywho. Let's talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, like I said, The Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 10. It's called Common Ground. And the log line is, the Batch has their ideology challenged. That's there. And so before we get into this episode, I'll just give some initial thoughts. I think for a log line to be, their ideology is challenged, and the title to be called Common Ground, I would have liked for this episode to have spent more time with those themes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really.
I don't think it does at all. I was just going to say I really didn't like the name of this episode. I didn't think it matched at all. But
right. So whose common ground are we talking about? In my.
I don't know. I guess the Separatists are finding common ground with the Separatists. I don't know.
I guess I think that's the most on the nose interpretation.
Yeah, but other than that, I was just I don't really know. Unless maybe they're talking about Omega finding some common ground on how to be useful. I don't know.
No, I mean,
so I think it's
so. Her B plot doesn't seem to really tie into that kind of thinking. But I think maybe you talk about this ideology being challenged. Echo and it's kind of like a stick in the mud for most of this episode, and Hunter basically has 2 lines before he's on board. So I we'll get to that. I'm just thinking again the title here. We just want to touch on the title every once in a while.
Yeah.
And it's just okay. It's only it's fine. It's really it's a little generous.
I just started to confuse myself with trying to think about whether or not the Separatists are on whose side they would be on, and I just confused my own brain with but are they enemies, or is the enemy of my enemy is my friend? I'm I don't know.
Well, I mean, so
the Separatists are gone at this point, are they?
Yeah,
not?
well, they lost the war.
Whose side are they on? Are they now on the Rebels' side, or are the Separatists on the Empire side? Because the Empire kind of was working with the Separatists, so I don't know. I couldn't.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's confusing.
There's a lot of questions around the industries that were supporting the Separatists, the Techno Union and the Banking Guild and all that stuff. That being said, and those answers haven't been, those questions haven't been answered yet. That being said, I think this episode does try to shine some light on this idea that the Separatists now are really kind of there's probably a lot of Separatists in the rebellion.
For sure,
probably what we're going to see, because we see we go and the episode starts. So we just get into it. This start on the planet Raxus. We've been to Raxus before. This is the in the episode Heroes on Both Sides, in the Clone Wars, and the idea at the time was to show, hey, the Separatists aren't as kind of like bloodthirsty as they're portrayed in kind of some of the propaganda and some.
Well,
of the
at least not all of them, but
right, and that they have legitimate issues with the way that the Republic is running things, and that they want to just start their own government.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So we meet them there, and Raxalon being the head, the capital city of Raxus, is where the Separatist seat of power was, where their senate was. Okay. So this episode, I think, tries to show, hey, with them having lost, quote unquote, lost the war, they are now going to be subjugated, much like all the rest of the Imperial planets, and ultimately that's what it all came down to, is just another means, an easier means to get these planets under the thumb of Palpatine, right? It was all his plan of, anyway.
Right.
So, like I said, this episode tries to touch on some of this stuff. I think it really doesn't dive deep enough, I think, into that idea, and maybe we'll get into it more now that that Senator is saved. But the idea, I think, is really fascinating. I just don't know if they do all the work that they need to. Ultimately, I like this episode. I just think it's like, you guys really did surface level stuff on this, and it could have been better, I think.
I would agree with that for sure.
Okay, so we start on the planet Raxus, and this beautiful establishing shot of the capital city. I saw a clip of I haven't gone back and rewatched the Clone Wars episode, Heroes on Both Sides, but I saw a clip of it, and it looks like garbage compared to this. Just like a N64 to like a PlayStation 5. Like, that's the difference, it seems like to me, in quality. It just looks so nice. You've got this autumn
Is that the
look.
whole series of where like they kind of have a little bit of like love interest between Ahsoka and that other kid?
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
Because he's like, I want to kill Dooku because he killed my someone.
Oh, really?
I can't remember, something like that.
Probably if they're having like a cordial conversation with Separatists, that's likely.
Yeah, because she was there with Padme or something on like some sort of
diplomatic mission.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, fair enough.
So Raxus is cool. I like the look of it. Like I said, it's got this like autumn
it's very pretty
look to it, and we see the capital city of Raxalon. Looks kind of like looks a little bit like Asgard. From the Marvel
a
movies,
bit, actually,
and
it's just all those like big tall pillars, and on the main building there,
right?
Is what I'm talking about. But yeah, like the infrastructure.
And so we have a nervous senator, played by Alexander Siddig. The name is Avi Singh, is the name of the senator, and you might recall Alexander Siddig, or recognize him from such works as Ra's al Ghul in Gotham, and he's also Dr. Bashir on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So he's now done the jump from Star Trek to Star Wars, and I was like, watching the episode, I did not recognize the voice, but I just thought, wow. I was, right when I turned it on, I was very impressed by the quality of voice acting from this senator. Yeah, and he's kind of like, he's humming and hawing. He's like, I think I'm making a mistake. And it's like, it's just really good. I think that's some of the best work here is with Siddig in this role. And he's standing next to an Imperial. Turns out she's a captain. Captain Bragg, I believe is her name. As she lets a crowd of onlookers know about some changes to the laws, including a curfew. So this is kind of like that jackboot type imperialism that we've come to recognize from the new version of the Empire. So the senator tells his droid, a model of protocol droid we've seen in the original trilogy, I believe, and this one is named GS8, who's played by Sion Clifford. I don't think I'm saying that right, but Sion, it starts with an S. Anyway, so she's from Fleabag, co-starring with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So now they have a little droid connection, because obviously she plays the droid in Solo. So
I was gonna say she sounds very familiar to L3. I was gonna ask that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's the same voice actor.
No, different person, same show.
Oh, okay.
They come from the same show, Fleabag. So
gotcha.
That's kind of cool. There's a little connection there, and I think again her performance is pretty good, especially as just like really embodying that protocol droid kind of look and feel. So anyway, we got some kind of like a little bit of star power here in the voice acting. I think it's really good work. I think it helps anchor the episode. Anyway, so Senator Singh says, that something were to happen to him, to, quote, follow his instructions to the letter. And then he takes the stage, and the citizens cheer as he kind of starts to recommend or tell them, like, hey, let's embrace these new rules, these new laws. It's for the best, right? But then he starts to stumble, and he's like, you know what? No. He has a change of heart, and he changes his tone, and he denounces the changes. He calls out the Empire for kind of unlawfully coming and kind of placing command over his planet, and he's arrested. And then ATTEs, which are all-terrain somethings. They're the six-legged tanks.
Yeah, do they call them crawlers, or is that something different?
No, I think that's something different. I mean, maybe they call them that, but they do have they call them walkers, I think, or
walkers,
I guess,
yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
So they've got these walkers, and we've only ever seen them kind of in very like heroic ways in the past. We've never really seen them used in this way, but they're used in this very kind of show of force fashion, where they are marched into the square, and clone troopers start kind of rounding up citizens. It's again.
For a second, I thought they were just going to open fire. I was like, are they just going to fully go like straight hardcore Empire here right off the bat? But they didn't. So I was like, all right, they're still holding back a little bit.
Yeah, because you can't just murder everybody.
No, but I thought they were going to. I was like, oh no, like they're just going to go dark right off the bat here.
Right, and I thought that too. It's like, what are you gonna do with these tanks? Because like you can just run underneath them and around them. They don't really like
blast everyone. But...
Exactly. So I think again, it's a show of force. It's a show that like, hey, they're not fooling around. And so we cut back to GS8, and she is on the comm, and she's sending a message to someone looking for help rescuing the senator. Apparently, she was talking to Sid, or at least someone who also talked to Sid. So, any thoughts on this first scene?
No, other than it looking, you're right, it did look absolutely beautiful with all the lighting was really good. Again, I don't know how they do that with animation, but to me, it's just, it's above my head on how they do it, but it's beautiful. But you're right. I think the voice acting was great. I really liked the way, sorry, what's his name? Avar?
Alexander Siddig playing Avi Singh.
Avi Singh, yeah, his little monocle. I really liked whatever that is. I want to know what it does.
That's pretty funny. It's got like he's got like a top hat and a monocle look. It's like a very like stuffy kind of look.
He kind of looked like a Shriner to me. I don't know if anybody else other than you and I would. Do they have Shrine Circus other places?
I think so. Like the little because they're in The Simpsons, I think too, right? The little hats.
Yeah, kind of Shriner hats. But yeah. I hope that monocle like does something. I hope it's not just blue glass.
I mean, it probably does. I mean, it's blue. It kind of looks like if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z, it kind of looks like their power. So they wear these little like monocle things that in Dragon Ball Z, and they read the power level of the people that they're fighting.
That sounds dumb.
So So anyway, don't make fun of Dragon Ball Z. Okay, you're gonna get bad. You're gonna get hate. You don't want that.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
So. I like the look of this. And I was like, have we seen a senator before? I don't think. It turns out we haven't, and that's fine. I just think it's like it would have been, I think, more interesting to have dealt with a senator that we'd have seen from the Clone Wars before here.
Yeah.
That being said, introducing Siddig here as this this monarch, I guess, this senator. It's always unclear, like king, queen, senator. Like sometimes they all play you kind of all have the same amount of power. It's not really ever clear, just like different names.
Like sometimes they still have like governors and senators, and like it's hard to know the hierarchy and all. Because
so Queen Amidala, she was the queen, the youngest queen, right? Padme was, and then she was like, you know what?
Then
screw
she became
queening. I'm gonna be a senator. So, but like, what kind of power does the queen have? It's unclear. And in this again, so he's a senator here, but he's like speaking as if he's like the president, right? So of the whole planet. So it's just confusing. It doesn't matter, but
it's politics.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot of politics.
It's like convoluted Star Wars politics.
They are. It's very complicated. But either way, I like the idea here. I'm liking Siddig's performance here. I kind of just really like this, intro scene.
Yeah,
I like really wasn't expected.
Yeah, I liked the bit of a backbone. Like, you can tell
Mm-hmm.
he's humming and hawing, and instead of just going with it, he's actually just like, no, you know what? Like, I got to stand up for my people, even like knowing exactly what's probably going to happen to him, right? So
Right. And
I can
like, so
appreciate that.
the thing is that I think is interesting here, and again, they don't dive deep enough into this, but you get the impression that the separatist senator would be less likely to go along with the empire because the empire was, essentially the republic. It's
The
like it's
Republic,
under a
yes.
different name. So, like, of
Right.
course, they're really not going to be like super happy with this whole situation.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
So, I mean, again, I just feel like there's some really complex ideas that they just didn't dive into enough. So I'm not going to belabor
for
that.
sure.
But
No,
yeah.
I agree. Actually, I feel like there probably are some more things that are a little bit more sinister that he's been told that that he's more worried about his people about. It's not just necessarily like we lost the war and this is happening.
Right, but then you also get kind of like this like behind the scenes stuff, like, or you would like to like what happened to get him to the stage here? Like, how
like,
long were the Imperials there? How long were they
Yeah.
talking? Like, what was the
Yeah.
deal that they cut that he kind of like stepped back out of? Like,
Exactly.
that's what I'd like to have seen more of. But again, I know that a lot of people didn't like that stuff in the Clone Wars. The politics are often boring.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest probably faults of the Clone Wars that it's like it's all over the place tonally and like from a story point of view, you have like it's just constantly different stuff thrown at you. It's like you never really know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's fair.
So with this, I mean, I think the tone has been a lot more consistent throughout. But just specifically here, just if you're gonna talk about this stuff, just give us don't sell us short. We're smart enough to figure it out. You know what I mean? So, okay, we cut to Ord Mantell, and the squad are walking through the market. They're in full gear. So this is what I'm thinking here at this point. Like, man, you guys are just chilling on Ord Mantell in your full, get up. People are gonna see you. This is how you get caught, right?
Yeah.
At some point, there's gonna be a shootout in Sid's bar, probably, right? So they're just not really being very conspicuous. And as Omega and Wrecker, they share some more Mantell mix. I think it's the best one yet. That's very cute.
Yeah, and, I like how she just rides on his shoulder.
Wow, his shoulder's it's got lots of room.
Mm-hmm.
And Omega is asking about like the next mission. So here's where I think, again, speaking of tonally, consistent or maybe inconsistent, you have this situation where after the last episode, she's asking a lot of questions about like the nature of her reality, who she is, why she's important, why is she why is she being hunted, right? What makes her different and special. And then the episode before that, she was dealing with all of the whole Order 66 stuff and Wrecker losing it, and like it's a lot to go through, right?
Oh yeah.
But she's like, screw it, what's the next mission? And I'll give the show some credit because Hunter's like, whoa, we can just slow down here because she's gone through a lot, right? So they pay it lip service, but she doesn't really seem to have internalized any of that or be exhibiting any kind of like emotional turmoil.
No, I love how even Wrecker's like, oh, she's fine to me. It's like, that's probably the issue, dude. Like, she's probably a little like traumatized and maybe needs a minute to decompress and think about things that have just
she's
happened.
in stage one. She's in what's stage one of
denial, right?
Denial. Yeah, denial. Yeah. Right, exactly. She's like,
shock,
everything's fine.
Like, she's just kind of it's all good. Like, Hunter, I think realizes like, we need to like watch her a little bit and maybe hold back here.
So having said all that, I guess I'll give the show a break. I'll take back what I originally said. It does at least address it, but there's still time for it to kind of them to dive deeper into it. I'll give them a break there. So we're back in Sid's bar, and Sid has a mission for them. What are the chances? As she's like, "Oh, I want to go on. What's the next mission?" So she says it's a simple quote extraction on Raxus unquote. Tech reminds us and the audience. That's where the separatist government was and has since become an imperial outpost.
Right.
Hunter and the squad aren't interested in helping a separatist. So this is like, again, talk about kind of just paying lip service. This is like, they're like, help a separatist? No, thanks. And then they're like, 2 minutes later, he's like, okay, I'm in. So whatever.
Yeah.
And whatever. I guess it's like, how much time do you want to spend on this? Like, if they have to go on the mission, like, you don't want them like having this big moral debate for too long. But again, this kind of they just have like a bit of a sidebar, and the sidebar that Hunter and Sid have, by the way, is not even about their moral issue with helping separatists, right? That's not even the problem. The problem is he doesn't want Omega to come with them. right? That's
Yes,
he's like, okay, fine, because we still owe you, we'll do this, and but I want Omega to stay behind because he doesn't want to take her to a planet that's swarming with Imperials, which I think is actually fair. So
that's super fair. I think so too. I think it would have been
Yeah.
crazy dumb if they took her there. It's like you're really gonna
Think
take
about
her
what
to
happened.
like a fully Imperial occupied planet.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
insane. Like you
It's a
can't.
bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a super bad idea. So yeah,
Although-
it makes sense.
Although again, like it seems like the lesson of this mission was, oh, you really should have brought her. Like that's like, which is like no, because like look how much
Yeah.
danger she would have been in, like a tank battle. Like come on, like so.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think
it's
the
true.
message is a little confused here.
Even last episode, like right at the end, like Hunter tells her that she's part of the team and they're never gonna leave her.
Right. Right.
Next episode, leaves her.
Yeah. So I mean, like, so hey, this is still the
But
same
fair.
studio that made the
It's
Clone
fine.
Wars, so they might still have some of the same, quirks and ticks that they
Yeah.
they carried over from that show. So like, again, we're not gonna harp on that stuff too much, but
No,
it
I
is
think
fair
it
to
was
call it out. It is
very
to call
fair
it out.
that they left her. I think it would have been crazy stupid for that story for them. Like we would have been, you and I would have been like, that's so dumb that they took her if they had taken
Yeah,
her. So,
right. Like, look how dangerous it is.
yeah,
No, because what you would have done was like stay at the ship, is what he would have said,
exactly.
Hunter,
And she
and
would've
then
got
she
caught
wouldn't have done
again.
it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, ugh, we don't need that loop. So like, at least there's some like different character growth here, but it's just a little bit, just not quite. Doesn't really line up here. It's fine. So, blah blah blah. Anyway, Hunter's concerned that taking Omega to a planet with Imperials is, a bad idea, and wants to leave her there, but he doesn't really trust Sid either. But she convinces him that, because their interests are aligned on this, that, she can trust him here. Although there is that line where
Right.
like, good, you shouldn't trust me, which is like,
yeah.
so when are you gonna screw us over? Like that's, I just feel like
that
that's kind
though.
of.
I liked that they were both very vocal about it. Like that Hunter's like, I don't trust you, and she's like, good. Like I like that they were both very much on the same page about that and not hiding it at all.
Right. You get
I
the
thought it was
impression
a
that
funny conversation.
she's kind of like a stern boss where like
yeah.
she's trying to teaching them through tough love, like, hey, you owe me, because like they didn't know that to even ask about those things, right? But she's not really like holding it. She's not Jabba-ing them about it.
She's not like,
Hey.
I'm gonna break your legs off until
Right.
you pay me.
Exactly. I'm not gonna hang you on my wall in carbonite, right? But like,
yeah.
but she's like basically like, this is a lesson, and of course it benefits her, so that always helps. But and then this is another one, like she's like, okay, see, you're learning. Don't trust me all the time, but you can trust me now. And he's like, okay, fine. So Hunter and Omega have a quick one-on-one after that, and it's basically about her not being able to come on the mission. He does the whole kneel down. So the last time we see him do that, he's like talking to her, and she's like, don't worry, we'll never leave you, like you said, right? And then this time he's like, we're going to leave you behind. And reminding her that, he's like, hey, listen, if you're part of the squad, following orders shouldn't be a problem. And it's like, ooh, it's a little bit of reverse psychology, but it works.
A little bit. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
So she decides, okay, fine. She reluctantly agrees. But the one line that sticks out of here is like, it's like, you can't leave this parlor. And I was like, you called it a parlor? Hilarious. I just think no one calls things parlors anymore.
No,
so
yeah, that is an interesting thing to call it for sure.
Yeah, it's like he. I'm not. There's a specific line in Billy Madison that reminds me of this, but I'm not going to say it here just for the sake of the show. Although I have sworn before, I'm just going to try to swear less. So Sid then they head out on the mission, and Sid recruits Omega to start scrubbing the bar. Any thoughts on this kind of the scene where before they leave and they have to dealing with Omega sticking around, staying behind?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. Like, it's just kind of funny how it goes back and forth a little bit. But like we said, it makes sense to me for them to leave her there. And I do like that him and Sid are kind of on the same page with that. So, yeah, I think it makes sense in the end. But
yeah, it does enough work. But it's like as a whole, outside of this episode, like in this episode, it's fine. But considered as a whole, as a part of the series, it feels a little like. And we haven't seen the whole thing yet, so there might be more to come about that stuff, but who knows?
Right.
It's just like, based off of last episode, it really feels like we could have taken a breath here. Something a little bit slower of an episode might have been a good thing. So, cut to the Marauder, and the squad is commenting on how they've never been to Raxus before. Echo, who's looking kind of extra grumpy, is still very pissy about having to help a separatist. For some reason, he's the one that's going to be embodying that for the squad. He's like,
I think that
can't
makes
believe we're helping
sense,
them.
though.
Yeah.
I feel like Echo, because I feel like Echo has probably dealt with more separatists than the Bad Batch has.
More, I mean, you think more just directly with like the politics of it, or just specifically like fighting more droids?
Well, I just mean like all of it, like the politics of it, and was it not like the separatists who took him and destroyed him too?
Well, sure, yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
that's
so
true. Yeah,
I just feel like he has a lot bigger grudge against them than the rest of them do.
Right, I guess that's true. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, I'll take it back. But he's just like, if you look at him in the ship, he's kind of like doing a big harumph, and he's like crossing his arms, and
yeah, he's extra grouchy this episode for sure. But I mean, they did torture him. So
yes, good catch. That's a good point. So there is a cool line here though. It's like, I always thought we'd make it to Raxus someday, but not like this. Hunter says, which I guess is an allusion to the war, thinking like, hey, and I'm kind of comparing it to World War II, and it's like, we're gonna march on Berlin, and like the head of the Axis, where their seat of power is, right? That's like, if we make it there, that's the end of the war. Right?
Exactly.
I think that's what they're kind of thinking, is like, hey, if we had made it to Raxus, the war would have ended on different terms. And that's fine. And so I just thought that was a cool line. The ship enters the atmosphere, and it's escorted by 2 V-Wings. I just think this is a really beautiful shot. Very beautiful clouds we have here in this like sunset-ish. It's like late afternoon type of look to it. And the V-Wings look great, by the way.
They do, yeah.
I don't know how many times we've seen V-Wings in animation. I don't think that often, but they're not really around very long, so I kind of like that we really only see them at the very end of Revenge of the Sith. And then we see them a little bit, I think, in Clone War, like the very end of the Clone Wars, I want to say. But that's basically it. So I hope this whole series, because we're dealing with more clones and their stuff, the V-Wings are around more. I just think it's a cool looking ship, like kind of fighter design that we just don't get very much of. And there's 2 of them here, so dope. And so they enter clearance codes that they got from Sid's client to get past the escort, and Tech and Echo are kind of having a little argument about like their difference in politics. And Echo's like, you're gonna trust them? What if this is a trap? And Tech's like, well, they're paying us, so who knows? Let's give it a shot. And like basically, Tech doesn't really seem to care about the politics so much.
No.
And is willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And Echo is just very staunch anti-separatist. Like, just no, I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt at all. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And then Hunter says, "Forget politics. We're here to do a job." And I can't tell if that's like a meta commentary on like the commentary on Star Wars, like, hey, keep politics out of out of Star Wars. I don't know if that's like what that is. I don't know, but at least here it's like, okay, let's get down to work, right? And then GS8 arrives from the forest, with Wrecker noting that it's surprising that they're working for a droid. And then this is kind of like another stigma that they have to fight off. So I guess it's kind of coming back to the common ground idea. They have to find common ground with separatists as well as droids, because they're used to fighting droids, not working with them.
Fair, but I mean, they have protocol droids and stuff that they deal with, I guess. But I guess they don't really have like tactical droids or
they're not usually their boss.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's true. They're not usually. Yeah, you're right, I guess. No, that's fair.
So I like how GS8 tries to kind of explain the situation that the governor's in.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, what happened was the Empire came, and they, we were going to make this speech about how it's important, like all this stuff. And she's like, no, we don't care.
Yeah.
But what she's saying, it makes sense. And like the way she's explaining it makes it sound very reasonable. Right. So like, if you're Echo, that's maybe something they would have, benefited from hearing. But ultimately, like I said before, there really is no negative consequences for their kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Prejudice, right? They don't really have to pay for that but they don't have they don't make any mistakes because they didn't trust separatists, like that. Like it just, nothing really comes full circle there, and I would have liked that to be a little bit more of a part of the episode, like we touched on.
I agree with that for sure.
So we get to back to Sid's, and Omega is moping around, and Sid tries to poorly to comfort her. And there's this kind of
so bad.
She's just really bad at it, and she's
really
like talking about how like, hey, you know what, kid, life isn't fair. And you know what? I've been told this. Every single person I know has probably been told by someone they're at like some adult at some point in their life. You know, life isn't fair, and you know what that always comes from? It comes from a grumpy, miserable person. Because
pretty much.
Because everyone knows life isn't fair. No one needs that to be reminded to them. No. It doesn't help anybody feel better ever.
It usually comes from a parent who's like sick of you moping around being difficult.
Well, no, or like
complaining.
It's just like a complaint or whatever. It's like, or like even like, hey, you know, them even being difficult, like a parent being like, you can't do this, or you can't do that, and it's like, well, that's not fair. Well, life isn't fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that. Like that explains away why they're being a jerk or whatever. Yeah. So like,
but you know, I just think. Does it never makes anyone feel better when you say that to them?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It always makes you more mad. You're just like,
you're like, well, yeah, great. So now everything sucks. Yeah. So she's like, she does this whole thing, and she tries offering a little bit more advice. She's like, you know, maybe if you weren't so hopeless or helpless, you know, those, I think she calls them the 4 laser brains.
Yeah.
Would take you on would take you on more missions, right? Mm-hmm. And this doesn't help either. And Omega storms off, and our 2 favorite regulars are there, and they give Sid just the stink eye. Like,
I love how they just shake their heads at her. Like, they're the most scummy deadbeats in the bar, and they're like,
totally.
Ooh, that wasn't cool.
Right, like, ouch.
These 2 gambling, debt-ridden.
Even they know. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, that one just was not cool. Like, that's not how you talk to kids.
I knew you'd like that moment. That's too funny. So Sid follows Omega, and she again tries comforting her, but this time a little bit more carefully, a little bit softer, but is kind of shot down by Omega, who is now kind of being the pissy one of the episode. And she's like, she's like, I'm here to, you know, watch over you. I promised I would. And he's like, oh yeah, for how much? And it's like, oof. Like right to the, it's like, not enough, which is actually, I thought, a good line. Mm-hmm. And I hope was improvised. I just like, that's one of those things where I'm like, okay, that's funny. So back on Raxus. Oh, actually, before we do that, any thoughts on this kind of B plot with Omega here?
I kind of thought it was cute. Like I liked seeing Sid try to soften up a little bit around a kid and fail miserably at it. I mean, she tried, but
A for effort.
Yeah.
C for maybe a C- for execution.
Very much still kind of gave me vibes of like the mom she plays in Matilda, because that's what the voice actress plays. So yeah, I thought I was very reminiscent of that for me a little bit, but I did think it was cute. Like everyone's kind of moping about something. In these first few opening scenes, but
yes.
No, I liked kind of this softening of Sid, or at least the attempted softening.
Well, no, and so she does. I think ultimately this episode she does soften, and I actually appreciate that.
Me too.
She calls her friend later, and that's nice. And like, so I think that's kind of like, for me, ultimately, like the mission to Raxus is like, from an emotional development standpoint, like doesn't do much for the most of the squad, but it does solidify like Omega's importance on it. So I kind of, again, like I said, I'm kind of flip-flopping on this episode a little bit, or kind of going back and forth. There's good elements, but there's also like, it's just kind of a little clunky, a little muddy, could be clearer, could be a little bit tighter.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, this is a 27-minute episode, which is again 1 minute longer than typical, but nothing really stands out here as being like really needing that extra minute, really. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Not like you're gonna complain about an extra minute. I'm just saying, like last episode, it really felt like that extra minute was used to like really great, in a really great way. And this, it's like, okay, it just kind of mixed in with everything, and that's fine. That's fine too. So back on Raxus, we've got more shots of ATTEs and clone troopers on patrol, and I just like this kind of like building, this compound that it looks like kind of like a security prison type situation, but it's not really. It's just kind of like being used as one. And you got these ATTEs like walking around in a circle, and you're like, what are they there for? Like, what's the purpose? Again, it's mostly just a show of
intimidation.
Show of power. The squad arrives, and they start scouting out the quote unquote prison. Echo and Wrecker are worried that they're being set up. And that only lasts about 2 seconds, because Hunter cuts them off, and has them start to take out the compound surveillance system. Hunter uses GS8 to lure out 2 clone guards into a trap. Always like when you can use a droid as a distraction or as bait.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And by the way, I like the single shot where she gets pushed out of the alleyway. The clones run up and then follow her into the alleyway, get beat up, and then we don't cut to them. They just we just see the squad come out the other side. I just like that, just kind of a nice, simple,
yeah,
kind of stylish way to show it.
For a second, I thought we were gonna see the classic Star Wars wear the stormtrooper uniforms after beating them up, but no, they just left them. They just didn't. Care.
Honestly, that's a better idea than what they did.
Probably. But we've seen it too often in Star Wars. This time it's just no nonsense.
It makes so much. They are clones. I mean, they wouldn't. I mean, Wrecker doesn't fit, right?
No, not at
all. But the rest of them are clones. It would be so easy for them to just anyway. I guess maybe we'll probably see that at some point in this series.
I'm sure we will. Yeah, they're probably saving it for a more important time.
Right. So they tap into the surveillance system, entering the building and stunning some more clones on the way. And might note, they are using the stun setting. They're not murdering people. They even did that with those scavengers or whatever back on the, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I know why it's happening, and it makes sense here, especially when you're fighting against clones. But if you've got people who are trying to kill you, the stun setting isn't really necessarily the best solution to use. So
I'm curious if or when we're gonna see that flip on.
I don't know. And it might be it might be never against non-human or non-droid enemies, just because
that's the thing. Because I feel
they're
to
the
them,
heroes, quote unquote, of the show.
And I think to them, they still know that those clones are them. Those are technically their brothers, right? So
yeah,
I don't know if we will see that switch to them having to use lethal force, but. Yeah, it's just funny though, because even I wonder if do those other clones know that the Bad Batch are clones? I guess to them they're traitors, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to them. Is the kind of the point. Okay, so where were we? As they make their way into they make their way into the room, the Senate towards the room the senator is being held in. Hunter fumbles some commands by calling for Tech and Omega to work together.
Yeah.
But Tech reminds him that she's not on the mission. That would be impossible, he says. And which is such a snarky way of saying it.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, oh, right. And so this was really where it feels like if this is the core message. Oh, Omega needs to be on the mission, right? That's the core message. And then calling it common ground, unless having found common ground with Omega at the end is kind of what they're really touching on.
Maybe.
Maybe. We'll see. So GS8, takes it into her own hands here. She's like, I'm getting the hang of this. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. And tries to be the distraction again, but the clones this time aren't falling for it. But don't worry, Hunter has a plan. He rolls a stun grenade. And by the way, I'm trying to remember if we saw stun grenades. I mean, I know we've seen them before on this show already, but was that a thing that people were using in the Clone Wars and stuff?
They definitely had them at least once, because I distinctly remember an episode of the Clone Wars where Ahsoka and Anakin and them are teaching them how to roll them up to those little combat droids, the droidicas.
The droidicas
to get through their defense thing to zap them. So I would assume those are similar.
Yeah, but but those I thought were designed to take out droids. Do they work to take out people too? I guess obviously.
I mean, they're just zapping them. It's probably like a taser. Like a taser would take out a human or a droid.
I guess that's true.
So I'm not too sure. I'm assuming they probably have the same kind of technology.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a stun grenade.
They're setting the grenades to stun instead of explode.
Right. Thunder rolls a stun grenade and takes out 2 of the clones, and then he beats up another one. And then breaks a priceless vase, or almost breaks a priceless vase in the process. BS-8 doing kind of some, top-notch protocol droiding, where he's like, this thing, caring about something that doesn't matter is just very funny.
You're fleeing. Those things are definitely don't matter, but that's very much, a protocol droid thing to focus on just the most irrelevant point.
100%. 100%.
We love them, though.
Yeah, that's true. It's very funny to me. The joke works is what I'm saying. Yeah. So we get to Sid's, or we go back to Sid's, and Omega is cleaning the bar. and watching as Sid and two of the. By the way, Sid tries to like cheer her up and then puts her to work and then goes play video games. Is basically what her whole deal is. So she's playing against the same two regulars, a game of Dejaric, which is essentially space chess, which we originally saw back in A New Hope on the Millennium Falcon. Fun to see it back here.
I love seeing it every time. Every time I see that game, I enjoy seeing it.
It's so good. I don't really understand how it works. Maybe we're never supposed to really fully understand it.
I don't think they're ever going to explain it. It just looks like you have those little characters and they kill each other, kind of like chess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to get rules for it, but maybe somebody out there will make them up.
Yeah, maybe, and like there might already be made up rules for it. But either way, they're playing space chess, and that's what's important here. And Omega warns Sid about making the wrong move, right? But she doesn't listen. And then she loses one of her players. And then so Omega, like, she's like, don't worry, I can help you. And so she does. She presses two buttons. So this is where it gets confusing to me, because it's like, how many turns are you allowed per so it's like a strategy game. It's like, well, yeah, if you can just go up and beat up the two other players without them being able to do anything about it, that seems like that's pretty good. Yeah,
you think there would be like you can either defend or attack, but you can't really do both or move. Right. Like you'd think there'd be like a mix between like, okay, you can do two things, one movement and one.
Who knows? All I'm saying, I mean, like maybe that they're the only character left, because you only had one character left, is like able to do multiple moves. I'm not trying to like nitpick the game. What I'm saying is it's like it just seemed unfair the way that she was able to do that with just one move,
Yeah.
So and then by the way puts these two into even further debt. You were the one who said to bet everything. It's like, oh, you guys bet everything on this again? Man, brutal.
That's why they're the best customers.
That's right. They're the regulars for a reason.
Hey, we know those regulars. We used to at the bar we worked at. We saw those regulars.
The same people,
VLTs every day.
Losing on the VLTs. That's right.
Yeah,
the video lottery machines. Sad. Anyway, Sid asks if she'd be willing to play for money, and they work out a deal. And because Omega, she's learning, she's like, it depends. What's my cut? And so Sid tries to give her 30%, but Omega's playing hardball. She calls for 60. She wants a 60-40
She just goes straight, doubles it immediately.
Right, well, because that way if she comes back, it's like 50-50, and then that's maybe where they landed. Who knows? They didn't give us the whole thing.
Yeah, I just laughed. Sid says 30, and Omega's like, no, just doubles it.
And then she's like, she's learning.
Yeah, she's learning, exactly. She doesn't just take the first deal. Like, she knows now. Like, okay, like she's learning.
Sid's rubbing off. She's like, see, I'm rubbing off on all of them. Isn't this great? And so back on Raxus, Senator Singh is in binders, and he's in his own wine cellar, and the Imperial Captain Bragg is citing him for defying Imperial law and I'm stumbling all over this. Opening. I can't remember the word I'm looking for here. Inciting civil discord. Openly.
Openly,
that's what I'm looking for. Thank you. I was
You're welcome.
dying there. Openly inciting civil discord. And I don't know who's playing this Imperial captain, but doing a very good job of sounding very Imperial.
Yes.
And so I can just look this up. Who plays the Imperial Captain Bragg? I got the IMDb up here.
They already have them looking very Imperial too. Like, she already looks like that other one from Rebels. I always forget her name, with the short black hair.
Yes, Captain Price, or Governor Price.
Governor Price, yeah. Oh, like they just have that very stern kind of look to them.
Yeah, so she's played by Shelby Young, who actually voices Princess Leia in Star Wars Forces of Destiny. Oh. So she has some prior Star Wars experience, which would explain why she was able to land this sweet role of Captain Bragg. And maybe we will, she gets a name, so maybe we'll see her again, because she doesn't die in this episode. So anyway, Senator Singh, he says, I refuse to be a puppet for the Empire. And she's like, that's fine, because we'll get what we need from you, or we'll acquire what they need. And she uses a Imperial torture droid, and it does that ominous wah 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 as it comes towards him.
Yeah.
And I just wondering here, just because the next thing is like an action sequence, but pausing here for a second, I just like the kind of the whole, it's very bad guy play to like pour a glass of wine and like talk about your evil plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very typical bad guy.
So like, and that's fine. I think that like, cause we're dealing with the Empire, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But she says, we'll acquire what we need. Like, what is she talking about? Like his loyalty? Is that what he's talking about? Like, what do you think she's talking about here?
Yeah, see, I'm not too sure because to me, if they needed info out of him, they would have already tortured him. So it can't really be info. I think it's probably compliance more than anything. Like she wants him to submit to them and then go tell the people, right? Because it seems like the people are getting riled up. Maybe she's a little not concerned, but annoyed that they might be losing control there. So
right.
I would assume it's like, okay, well, we're just going to torture you until you decide you're going to cooperate. And then, we'll move on from there.
Yeah. So I guess that must be it. Because you're right. If it is information, like they already have access to all the records and everything. Like what could he possibly know? I mean, he could have told her where these hidden tunnels were that they use later.
I guess.
Yeah. So just as the torture droid is about to start doing whatever it is that it does, because you never really see it in action.
Yeah, they just have needles on them and then they look scary. So
yes. A smoke bomb goes off and the Bad Batch arrive and they stun all the Imperials and rescue the Senator. And I loved BS8 or GS8. She comes in and she's like, "Don't worry, I saved your most prized vase."
Yeah. I'm sure he cares.
Yeah, he's like, "Great, thanks, BS." Yeah. Unfortunately, the Imperial captain triggered an alert right before she was stunned, and their location is given away, and we get that like classic Imperial alarm, which is always very fun. Like, wow, wow.
Oh yeah,
you know
the like kind of weird horn. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like you normally hear them when ships release like TIE fighters and stuff. Is where like whenever I hear that sound, that's what I think of specifically. But
yeah,
I guess
I think of the first trailer for Rogue One, which used it to great effect.
Oh, okay, yeah,
because it's you first hear it on the Death Star for the first time in Star Wars.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, but it is a very like Imperial sounding alarm. So
their plan is to seize one of the walkers and blast their way out, which is a bad plan, but whatever. And then there's this really impressive sequence, which is really fun because they just like jump into action. They use like grappling hooks to like latch onto this walker, and they slide down and they take out all the whole crew. By the way, there's a line where Wrecker throws them out, and he's like, "They're gonna feel that one tomorrow," because he's like just dropping this like these lifeless bodies. I don't know how far up. I don't know. At least 10 feet, probably. Down onto the ground. Yeah,
for sure.
And so I think of like falling 10 feet, like is pretty high if you think about it, And
that's
I just
at
watched
least a story, isn't it?
Yeah, about. And I was watching that new movie on Amazon Prime, The Tomorrow War, and I don't know if you saw the ads for it, but it's not very good. But the point being, it's like a sci-fi movie. They get trapped, like they get sent back in time or forward in time or whatever it is, and they get sent there, and they land about 5 to 10 feet off the ground, and then you see them arrive, and everyone's always like breaking their ankles, and like it's like it's not like a casual like just drop down. It's not like how we see it in other time travel stuff where like they just walk out onto the street. So I think So I like think of it here as like, oh man, they just dropped them so far. And sure, they were stunned, but you might have broken both their necks. So
yeah, and they're
gonna feel that one tomorrow.
Yeah,
yeah.
So casual, but they didn't kill them, so
exactly. And they have Bacta tanks and whatever. They'll be fine. So I just think that the seeing the squad in action here, and by not having Omega here, by the way, allows them to do really exciting. I think more exciting and like more bombastic type of missions. Like there's explosions and there's like way more like gunfire and like it's exciting, right? And you'd be like,
I think
if
so too.
Omega was there, you'd be like, whoa, this is super dangerous, right?
Yeah, because you're kind of worried they're gonna have to duck and cover more, they're gonna have to protect her more. So yeah, for sure, this is kind of them right in their element, no holds back, right? Other than not killing.
Well, other than that small,
other than piece. stunning. But still, no, you're right. It's like it's full action. They are just the Bad Batch doing the things the way they do them.
Mm-hmm. So and it's fun, and I think it's like really a kind of like a testament to like how good of a squad they are together. So they take out this whole tank in a matter of seconds. They board it, and there's this very slow. And by the way, I'm totally here for this. I loved it. This super slow tank battle.
Yeah.
Like between these
crawling,
they're just like they just look so useless to me. Like it's like whatever. So they're going, and then what I actually do appreciate in the thinking about it's like if this is really happening, what would you do? So they actually lob these like shots over the building, and it actually works. It hits them. So I thought that was kind of cool. So they get hit, and they need to make a repair, and so Tech starts fixing the tank as the rest of the squad use kind of ground tactics to hold off the rest of the clones. And then you see this like really cool slide. Hunter kind of slides under the other tank. He like stuns like 4 clones like in a row, like bang, 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 bang.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Wrecker, who he's like on top of the tank. He's like turning the turret by hand so it doesn't hit there. It's like this is like, oh, that's cool. This is a cool stuff.
Yeah,
that was exciting.
I thought it was kind of funny how when their tank gets hit, that its legs buckle at the knees like an animal. I was like, why does it do that? But like to me, I just thought it was funny. I don't know why I noticed that out of all the things
I
going on.
also noticed that because when it gets fixed, it like lifts its leg back up. Yeah, and it's like well, it's a walker, so just don't worry about it.
Yeah, I already know it was an interesting addition. But.
Yeah, and it's like it's just one of the things like I don't care because it's like ultimately walkers don't make sense anyway.
No, they look cool, but
they look cool. So it's like I remember I used to make cartoons. I used to draw my own little cartoons when I was a kid. And I was really obsessed with the video game Worms. I don't know if you remember that game. It's just like this. There was a turn-based kind of action strategy game where you had these little like worms, and they got like bazookas and like machine guns, and then you kill each other.
Okay.
It's really silly.
Yeah.
And so, but I always because they're easy to draw, I would like draw these like war comics with worms as the soldiers, but instead of regular tanks,
cute.
They had like ATTE style walkers. They had like these like I remember drawing them. That I was like, this is cool, right? So for me, this is like a childhood dream come true. I'm like loving every second of this, and including, by the way, the fact when that other tank starts walking over, like the walker starts like. Because they take out the other one and it starts to walk over the other one. I'm like, oh, cool. This is what the whole reason you have walkers. So you can avoid this whole problem. So you
can walk over stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right? So, yeah, I was into that. And so as another walker approaches and the squad looks like they're kind of done for, these other 2 kind of clones just kind of appear out of nowhere from the side and try to arrest Tech. But Singh uses the vase, whatever, from earlier, and he like surprises them and like gives them a chance to stun them and to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're being chased again by another tank, and the walker's back up, but it's like leaking oil all over the place, which I thought was kind of cool, kind of a cool visual. And Tech gets the walker to head down a side street at Singh's request, right? And Tech thinks, that's a dead end. We can't go down that way. But, and then this is again coming to this common ground idea. He's going to say, you just have to trust me. And I just don't feel like that was earned. So
no.
Whatever.
I don't know why he couldn't just tell him, like, yeah, there's a secret passage down there.
Right, exactly. It's like, you have to trust me. Because in 3 seconds, I'm going to tell you about the secret passage.
Yeah, you could just told them.
Right. And it's fine. Like, I actually like the idea of, like, you have to trust me as, like, a concept in the story. But just, again, not earned. Not earned.
No, not at all.
So they turn down this side alley, and the rest of the clones close in, and they're like, "Look, they're moving into a dead end, those idiots!" And they all rush in, and they get like in front of this wall, and Wrecker blows a hole in it, and they head into this underground tunnel, just as the rest of the clones kind of blow up everything. And by the way, I appreciate that they actually linger long enough to actually see us or see the other clones blow up the other tank, the other walker, and then be able to say they're not here. It's the classic.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I kind of liked how Wrecker puts another explosive there as they're running down the tunnel for it to cave in so that they can't necessarily see that they went down a tunnel. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But yeah, I thought it was like, all
too
right.
late. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Fully thought through. Appreciate
it.
So back on the Marauder, Senator Singh's kind of having another change of heart, which I think is like, really? Now? But like, okay. And he's feeling like he shouldn't abandon his people. He's convinced to go with them by GS8 and Echo, who's now kind of like come around to it, and this kind of live to fight another day lesson, which I think is, by the way, it's fair. It's a good lesson. But here's the opportunity to really dig deeper into this thinking with Senator Singh, right? Like, what does it mean to go into exile as a leader, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And like, we could have dealt with the whole. There's a whole episode there, you know, but they just gloss over this kind of concept in basically, you know, 3 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
So,
which is like
just disappointed.
That's fair. To me, I was like, okay, I liked that there was at least a little bit of him being like feeling guilty about just bailing, right? So I appreciated that there was something there, but I totally get what you're saying, where it's, you know, yeah, you're right. Like, what does that mean? What's he going to be able to do from somewhere else that, you know, he can't do there?
I'm okay with this being quick. I just feel like if it's not touched on again, I feel like that'll be unfortunate. Is what it'll be like.
I would agree.
Because the idea is good. Not addressing it all doesn't make sense, but only giving it 3 lines of dialogue also doesn't. It kind of seems like it's a little short shrift. So,
and I feel like in the past too, we're very used to seeing separatist leaders being very selfish and not caring.
Except for in that one Heroes on Both Sides episode.
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
See them like just more as people, or as others, like
where it's like other ones were kind of like, oh, I don't care, I'm out of here. So it is nice that probably is the common ground, right? Like, they're learning that maybe this separatist guy, just because he's a separatist doesn't mean he's that bad. You know, he still has similar values and cares about his people and isn't
common ground almost.
Yeah, isn't garbage. So I guess the name actually does kind of work.
Having said all that, yeah, actually it works. I mean, like, so coming back to the idea earlier of like Hunter, this meta commentary on like keep politics out of Star Wars. Star Wars is all about politics. So like,
I mean, it's a war.
It's literally like, but like
war is
like
politics.
The episode 1 is like the most convoluted political drama of all time.
Yeah,
about like
so
taxing trade routes and all this stuff. It's like,
yeah.
And you might not care about that stuff, and that's fine. Just like, there is something to be said about the fact that, hey, you know, Star Wars is always commenting on politics. It uses politics as a part of its main story. Sometimes like literally in this episode, but sometimes, you know, figuratively or metaphorically in others. So just a comment there. So we get to Orb Mantell, and we're back. By the way, they have no issue leaving the planet, by the way. It's just like they don't get chased by the V-Wings, or we don't see it. It's just like out of there, which is fine because they're running out of time for the episode.
Yeah.
We get back to Orb Mantell and Sid's, and they're back at the parlor, and the squad are surprised as kind of like a bunch of people are like running in to the bar. They're like, what's going on? And inside we find that Omega is playing Dejarik with Sid, surrounded by like a whole crowd of people. And she's like, people are like, oh my God, this girl can't lose, right?
Yeah.
And at first, Wrecker's not very happy. He's like, wow, this isn't keeping a low profile.
Well, it's not. There's a huge crowd in the bar.
Right. Which is, you know, a fair critique, but neither is walking around with all your gear and stuff in the middle of the street.
True.
So, you know, whatever. Cat's out of the bag there, Hunter, already. So, and whatever. He's not impressed, but then Sid is like, hey, man, take it easy. She's a natural. And by the way, she paid off your debt, right?
Yeah. So she must have won a lot of credits.
Either, yeah. And like, so the thing is, like, it's not, she was leveraging Sid's bankroll. Like, Sid was bankrolling her. So she was so good that she was willing to pay the money up so that she could play, you know, whoever, like high stakes poker, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine it's like a 10-year-old just kicking ass in high stakes poker, but like obviously they don't have their own money, so like they would need someone to back them.
Of course,
that's what Sid's doing here.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's very good at, obviously, and like I said, at first Hunter's upset, but she tells him about the whole debt situation, and there's this kind of nice turnaround we mentioned earlier that she's kind of warmed up to Omega, and you know, she says to Hunter, you know, you should show some gratitude. And calls Omega her friend. And like, obviously there's some like poor motivations here. Like, of course she's a lot happier with Omega now that she's winning her money, right?
Oh yeah, right.
But I get the impression that that she's kind of warmed up to her a little bit too. So
yeah, I would say so.
what I wrote here in my notes is whatever gets her there, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever works. So Hunter, taking a moment to reflect, asks Omega, and like the way, by the way, this is staged, I think is pretty cool. But because she's so short, it makes it look very kind of imposing. You have this full-grown man who's kind of like has his back to her and turning to look at Omega and downward at her, and he just looks very scary here for something, like unnecessarily, I think. And so she's like, "Is it true? Did you really pay off our debt?" Like, what a crazy thing to ask a 10-year-old. So
yeah, I know.
And she just says she wanted to be useful, which is like, okay, fair enough. Okay, that's pretty sad. That's tugging on the heartstrings. And so he's like, okay, fair enough. He says, we'll play another match, and if you beat me, you won't have to sit behind any more missions. And they sit down and they start playing another game. We don't see the outcome, but you have to assume that she's not going to be stuck behind on any more missions. That's
feel
like
that's a reckless thing to play a gambling game about.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, right? Like he could always just be like, "Yeah, but this is too dangerous."
Yeah,
right?
I was
like,
gonna say because
he can pull rank at any time.
For sure, because it's like, okay, yeah, that's fair to be like, in general, you're allowed to come, but I feel like you need to still have like, just because you won that game doesn't mean you can come to like the most dangerous things,
right?
And
like,
have to do something insane.
So we're talking about like her being like having this idea that she's got a really strategic mind, right? So
true, yeah.
This is now touching on this.
She's useful, but
this idea of like, okay, is she really good at this game, or is she just force sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And assuming that she is, which we've kind of been thinking about since basically the first episode, she kind of has some of those preternatural skills that Anakin had to allow him to like be really good at pod racing,
True.
For instance. So if that's the case, is she really good at strategy, or does she just know what's going to happen next? So
maybe
ultimately, it doesn't matter. That's a pretty good way to be good at strategy. So
maybe she's just a savant, like that girl on that TV show, The Crown. Was it The Crown?
No, it's not The Crown. You're thinking of the chess
Queen's
one.
Gambit. The Queen's Gambit. Yeah, maybe she's just a savant.
Maybe, but I think more interestingly, she's force sensitive.
Yeah, I mean that would be more interesting, but that's going to involve a lot of explanation on how that works. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, it's just her being able to see the future.
Yes, yeah, no, that's
one
true.
move ahead.
Basically, and being able to read people's minds, kind of, right? Because then she can read their next move.
I suppose, but I feel like a lot of this is kind of happening just for her, just naturally. She doesn't really know that's what's going on.
That's true,
right? And she's just interpreting it as like, oh, it's a strategy game. Of course, I'm good at that because a game of chance, she doesn't really have that same ability to like leverage those abilities.
No, of course not.
But let's take it to the logical conclusion then, which is like, okay, let's assume that she is really good at strategy. Is she now the squad strategist? Because I thought that was Tech, and or at least part of his job. Is she really going to be sitting at the? Is she really going to be sitting at the on the ship and like giving them orders about where to go and what to do? Because that kind of seems to defy plausibility too, right?
That's true, yeah, because she doesn't necessarily have the same like military training that they have, but
yeah, you're really good at chess. That doesn't mean you can be a military commander.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're good at this game, but that's not really real life. So
maybe that's the next lesson for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe. I think okay. Well, I mean, ultimately though, we are going to see her use those abilities, her strategic abilities, to help the squad. That's just going to happen. I just don't know what that looks like yet.
Maybe she'll be like one of those, what are they called? Strategy droids that like the separatists had.
Well, yeah,
where they would give them the probabilities all the time. Like,
right. They went and stole a head of one of those not that long ago.
Yeah, exactly. Remember? So maybe she'll be like one of those to them now, just giving them probabilities and giving them the odds all the time.
Right, because everyone loves to hear the odds in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up, and like it ends on the match. We don't know to see the outcome. Final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not my favorite episode, but I didn't dislike it either. I just, I am probably one of those people that thought it was a little too, not too politicky, but I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite after the high we came off of from the last two episodes.
Right.
So because this one did feel like a dip compared to those.
If I can maybe extrapolate on that, or try to like put myself in shoes. So is it that like we were really dealing with like personal stakes with Omega and like the squad in the last two, and like we were very invested in them as characters, and because of that, those episodes are very exciting, right?
Yeah.
Now
yeah,
in this
exactly.
episode, the stakes are much more about like galactic politics,
Mm-hmm.
and although interesting, not as close to your heart necessarily.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Like, not that I'm not as interested in it, but it's just, yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, like we're getting into some more like politicky kind of separatist sort of things now that I don't necessarily care as much about. But I still felt like they did a good job with everything in it. Like, I'm not mad at it. So
Right. Yeah. So I kind of come down on like similar space as you. Like, ultimately, I actually really do enjoy the galactic politics stuff of Star Wars. As I've gotten older, I've enjoyed it more. I probably didn't when I was younger. But this episode is saved by the tank battle sequence, the Walker battle sequence. That like totally like, and that's just personal for me. Like, that's everything. I've always wanted to see that. That's so cool, right? And like different than like the Walker face-offs we've seen in the past, like where they like coming at each other and they're
right,
like,
and they're just shooting at each other. And
yeah, like it's like that's not exciting. This was cool because they're like it was like a chase, although very slow.
Definitely.
So I really enjoyed that. I really like that. I like the way it looked. I think it looks really cool. They went to a lot of like it's a big new environment. It looks really cool. By the way, there's a little small thing I did read on Twitter from the composer or one of the sound mixers of this episode. That was essentially they tried to come up with a sinister version of the Clone Wars theme, and they use it at that kind of opening sequence with the walkers coming into the square.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't really pick up on that when I was watching the episode. I just saw that on Twitter, so I'll have to give that sequence a rewatch and see if I can't pick up on that. But so overall, I think, and that's a great example, by the way, of something that like seemed like they had like really lofty goals, but not everything really landed. So it's like for me, this is like a solid like 6.5 out of 10 episode.
Yeah, I would say that for sure. I think that's very fair.
And like I would be willing to give it a whole extra point maybe for the Walker battles alone. So yeah, I'm not going to belabor the kind of the points we made out throughout the episode. I kind of talked about them to death. So overall, it's okay. Not my favorite, but I like. I want them to keep trying for this type of stuff because I think eventually they're going to hit it. It's going to land, and it's going to be really impressive and exciting and fun. So
definitely,
it's just not quite there yet. We're close.
Yeah, we'll get in there.
Yeah. And it's just like because we did the same stuff in Clone Wars. Like they dealt with those political things, and they got better.
Sure,
those episodes got better. And then they started tackling some of the kind of the moral ambiguity of being a rebel and rebels. And so now they're dealing with similar ideas and concepts and kind of merging some of those things together. But they haven't quite hit it yet. But I think they will. I think they'll get there. Okay, that will do it for this week's episode. We'll be back next week with The Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 11. Before we go, I'll just remind you to follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast, Facebook.com/Tower Babblecast, and head over to our website, towerbabble.ca, to find everything we do. If you want to help support the show, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/Tower Babblecast for as little as $5 a month. You get to help support the show, but also some bonus content. We do a monthly film club. Last month was Running Scared. This month is Driven. And the month after that is probably Face Off, and we're hoping for Rachel to join us for that.
Yes.
So stay tuned for those, and we'll be back, like I said, next week with Season 1, Episode 11. We'll talk to you then. Felt like I was stumbling on words more than I usually do today.
There's only one word.
Couldn't say... What was the word again? Openly.
Openly.
Openly. Yeah.
I feel like you need to live
Openingly
Openingly
incite civil discord.
Yeah. No,
I think you
need to live stream yourself watching Face Off for the first time.
Oh, as a live reaction stream?
Yeah.
That's funny. Maybe I should.
Tell all the 2 patrons to
Like, rude. There's more than that.
I see 2 that interact with you, okay?
That's not fair. Anything is appreciated. So
no, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's like tell them to they can start watching at the exact same time. We can all
do
it together.
a watch along.
Yeah.
I think don't they have those features now on like Netflix and stuff? We can. I don't know how that works,
actually. Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
Is that something that people like doing? I don't know. I've never done it.
Who knows?
Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here,
All right,
and I will. I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.